Behind the greatest jazz album ever recorded is a question that took decades to resolve. Who actually wrote Blue and Green? And that story lives inside an album that has sold more copies than any jazz record in history. This is Kinda Blue, Miles Davis, Columbia Records. The band he assembled reads like a Hall of Fame. Miles Davis on trumpet, John Coltrane on tenor sax, Julian Cannonball Adderley on alto sax, Bill Evans on piano for 4 tracks, Wynton Kelly steps in on piano on Freddie Freeloader, Paul Chambers on bass, Jimmy Cobb on drums, 7 musicians, 1 room, 2 sessions. To understand what makes this album revolutionary, you have to understand what Miles was reacting against. In 1953, pianist and theorist George Russell published the Lydian chromatic concept of tonal organization, a framework suggesting that improvisation could be built on scales rather than chord changes. Miles had been absorbing those ideas for years. He already tested the modal approach on his 1958 album Milestones. Kind of Blue was the full realization. Modes replace chord changes, melody over harmony, space over speed. And here is how Miles chose to record it. He called for almost no rehearsal. The musicians arrived with little idea what they were about to play. Davis handed them sketches of scales and melody lines the morning of the session and told them to improvise. Nearly every track was recorded in a single take. The rehearsal was the recording. So What opens the album. The opening bass and piano exchange is one of the most recognizable moments in jazz history. Freddie Freeloader, and this is the one where Wynton Kelly replaces Bill Evans on the piano, bringing a bluesier, more grounded feel. Blue and Green, and this is where we return to the opening question. Evans maintained he wrote this piece. Davis took sole credit. The authorship unresolved until after both had passed, but now acknowledged as a co-written track. All Blues, a 6/8 waltz that gave the album one of its most hypnotic grooves, and finally, Flamenco Sketches. I've noted D Phrygian here, and that's oversimplification as it doesn't live in a single mode. Musicians improvise through 5 different scales and sequences with no fixed length for each. They move when they feel ready. The Quincy Jones reportedly said he had played Kinda Blue every day and that it's his orange juice, and he's not alone. This album has been a daily ritual for musicians and listeners for over 60 years. The numbers tell the rest of the story. #1 selling jazz album of all time, certified platinum 5 times over. In 1992, it was inducted into the Grammy Hall of Fame. It has spent over 700 weeks on the Billboard charts. And here's one of my favorite footnotes. Early pressings of the album contained a manufacturing defect that caused the record to play at a slightly flat pitch. Some listeners and critics actually preferred it. Looking at the 1959 series as a whole, Kind of Blue doesn't just lead in sales, it towers over the other 4 albums combined. 1959, 5 albums, one extraordinary year, Mingus, Brubeck, Coleman, Coltrane, and Miles, each of them changing music in a different direction. The print is available now, link is in the bio. Thanks for all the support and amazing comments. Stay tuned for next week when we diagram the most iconic jazz clubs of New York City.